are we choosing to have patience with ourselves and others, compassion? Are we choosing ownership, perseverance? Are we choosing to relate to the present moment in a way that is more in alignment with the love and the peace and the joy and the freedom of our true nature? Because that our true nature is love and peace and joy and freedom. That is our true nature, always, always, always. No matter how deeply we get wrapped into the horror stories that we've created for ourselves on earth, and no matter how much fear we have in response to the horror story we've erected, our true nature is always that love and that peace and that joy.
I'd like to welcome a very special guest and author of the book, A Walk in the Physical, Christian Sundberg. Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christina. It's an honor to be here.
I'm so honored to have you here. And since I saw your first podcast, I couldn't wait to have a conscious conversation with you. So with that being said, are you ready to get started?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect. So, Christian, when I heard your story about remembering your pre-birth experience, one of the things that really impacted me the most was when you described how you met this being and there was some quality about that being and you were curious. And once you learned that that being spent time on earth, your soul said, I really want to do that.
Yeah.
That jumped out to me. I immediately felt that knowing who I am in this body on this time space, earth reality, I immediately was like, I know my soul did that too. And so
I think many of us do. Even if we don't recall, I think many of us have been similarly inspired. In fact, I heard Bob Monroe, the famous out-of-body explorer, make a comment to that effect a while ago. After I had shared it, I remember him saying that many of us come because we become inspired by a being who has come, and we see the potential and the expansion and the love and the joy that's within them, and we just say, I want to do that. And that's so what I experienced. So I love that. I love that he said that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was what impacted me most was that, I've signed up I have had a lot of challenges in my life, mostly around addiction and being a single mom for 18 years. Those are my two big challenges. And many, many times I have felt victimized by this planet. And so the reason that, one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you was because it was so inspiring to hear that we choose to be here.
Yeah.
So could you talk about that a little bit?
We do choose to be here. And I know it can feel like we're victims when we're here because the level of constraint that we're dealing with here is very high. So and when I say that, what I mean is like we feel separate from each other. And we feel bound by like biology, what our biology limits us to, and all the constraints of the physical universe, like linear time and discrete location. These things that we think are so obvious, they're actually really alien to us. It's a very, very dense experience by comparison to be human. It's like wearing a heavy coat, like wearing a 500-pound coat or something, and then once we're wearing this 500-pound coat, we say, oh my gosh, this is heavy.
Right.
It can be heavy. Yeah. But the spirit is deeper than that. Like we know from that perspective that the limitation is actually an opportunity. And so that's why we come. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. You said the limitation is opportunity.
Yeah, it can yield opportunity depending on how we respond to it. The key is, so it's not that limitation itself causes an effect, and it's not that suffering is good or something like that. Because I think a lot of people, kind of tie those things together, and then they think, oh, well, that means pain is good. I came here to suffer. No, it's just that when the limitations are high, we might respond in fear. And when we respond in fear, we suffer a lot because we put all this negative meaning on our lives and we reject what we're experiencing. And, we feel a lot of pain. It's not about the limitation. The active ingredient is how we respond, like what we do with it, the quality of being that we bring into it and through it, like how we meet whatever has arisen. That is where the real quality is, you know? So when we talk about, like, I've used the analogy that being physical is like lifting weights on a weight bench. So like the action of pushing up the weights can mean a lot of different things, but the simplest way to put it is having a loving intention rather than a fearful intention. And love can mean so many things. It can mean perseverance when things are difficult. It can mean acceptance when something is really hard to accept. You know, it can mean choosing compassion in a situation where it's not easy to choose compassion. There's so many things that can possibly mean. So it's that the limitation is giving us that context, and I call it the counter pressure of circumstance. You know, circumstance is giving us this counter pressure. We get to then pit ourselves into it and against it, you could say. I don't want to say against, because it's not like the physical world is in any way adverse to us. There's no opponent. I just mean that we are able to shine who we really are in and through it by making choices and by bringing forth a certain quality of being. And that's like, so to put it in a metaphor, like you could say, when you're sitting on your couch, it's really easy to, like, I don't know, watch Survivor, the show Survivor, you know, when people are like out on an island and they're starving, you know, and they're having to do all these physically demanding challenges and then vote each other out in this reality show.
Right.
It's one thing to be on the couch. It's another thing to go there and starve and have to make choices. Physically incarnating is a little bit like that. You know, like it's one thing to like say, so to speak, I don't want to limit this too much with words, but it's one thing to say, I am of joy and I love you. It's another to actually be on the desert island starving. It's another one to be here and be a single parent, or to have someone, you know, to be someone who has an illness or something, and then to see how you respond. You know, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was a long answer.
No, it's okay. I love it all. There's so many different threads that I want to go with that, but what you just said about, you know, being with an illness or with, you know, some sort of limitation. I remember in your story when you chose to come here, you saw like a blueprint or like a flow chart kind of, you know, what that would be. So do we know the limitations or the possibilities of limitations before signing up to?
Yes. So we do. What we see is the context, the full context. We have a really good view of the circumstances, the body, the parents, the society, and all the prediction of how that life might unfold. I use the word prediction because that's really what the pre-life review is. It's not set in stone. You know, it's not like you're reading a script that now you just have to go live out. It's not like that. It's that you start from a point of, you know, being incarnated and being born. Actually, incarnation often happens before birth, so it's actually pre-birth. But you start from this point, and then as you experience birth and growing up and getting older and going and making all these choices, there's so many things that might unfold, and the system is just really good at predicting that. So it can see the potentials. But what I reviewed primarily wasn't events. I mean, there were events in it. What was of primary interest is what it would be like to be me, like to have the experience of being Christian, you know, because really what's going on here is you're having an experience, I'm having an experience, the person listening today is having an experience, and the nature of that experience is what's really going on. It's not so much about, there are events happening, there are circumstances happening, but it's like, what does it feel like to be you? You know?
Right.
So that was what I reviewed before. It was like, what would it feel like to be Christian, and what avenues might unfold, and how might it feel like to be exactly in that place? Like even right now, you know, like all the way out this far into the life, what is it like? What does it feel like to be me? I don't know if that describes it well. So we do see that ahead of time, and we see the opportunity that affords, and we do sign up, even though part of that is forgetting that we that we did that.
Yes, I was just going to ask you because, you know, we're talking about you because you remember, and like I don't remember. I resonate with everything that you say. And I just do know now that somewhere I had a similar experience. You remember. So what I was going to ask is that, similar to all souls that decide to incarnate on Earth or in Earth? I know you say there's no distance. So is it on Earth or in Earth?
It's that Earth is appearing in us, actually. But yeah, it's appearing on the movie screen of your awareness. Your awareness already existed before. But anyway, not to get away from your question. Yeah.
We typically, and I know for myself, even though intellectually I have read so many things, I've meditated, I've had experiences, most of the time I walk around believing that I am in my body. But
yeah, that's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal.
But really, the body is occurring in our minds. Would you say that's correct? Or how would you describe that?
Yeah, the body, I don't want to specify it to the mind. The mind is the experience of the body is occurring in our awareness, in consciousness itself.
Yeah.
So as a just as a small tangent, but I just find this helpful. Like today, if you lift up your hand and you spend a few moments closing your eyes and feeling the aliveness in your hand, I'm doing this because it's very tangible. It's like right now, it's right here.
Mm.
The aliveness in your hand. If like, how do you know that you have a hand? You can ask yourself that with your eyes closed, and you might feel like air moving across the surface of your skin. I don't mean that sensory experience. I mean the aliveness that's in your hand. Do you feel that aliveness?
Mm-hmm.
So that aliveness, I won't go into a full exercise here, but if that aliveness is itself the living consciousness that you are, it was already there, and it doesn't have a boundary to it. Actually, it doesn't have an edge. Like if you investigate that aliveness closely, you'll find there's no edge.
Right.
There's the experience of an edge as wind blows across your fingertips and you feel a boundary.
I'm doing it actually right now.
So anyway, so what happens is, I mean, that's a very simple example, but I think it is actually really powerful, because if you go far enough into that direction, there is what I don't want to make this sound stimulating for the ego, but there is an inversion point where if you go deep enough into it, all of a sudden it all kind of flips around, and you can become this is very tangible, very tangibly experientially aware that the physical sensory data is occurring within you, and that your body of awareness is actually way bigger than the little sensory data. But anyway, usually on Earth, as we walk around, we become deeply associated with the form, with the sense data, the sight, the sound, the touch, and the thoughts, all the thoughts. And the more we focus on it, the more firm and real it is. And that's what the veil permits. The veil just permits us to kind of get lost in and focus deeply within the form. But like children, for instance, who haven't been here as long, really young, young babies, they don't have as much form association yet. So they come and go a lot more freely. They're a lot more open to it. Usually by the age of 4, 5, 6, something like that. Now you got an identity. Your parents have told you who you are a few hundred times, and you've really started to focus into it. We all tend to do that. So back to your original comment, I did not remember the majority of my adult life. I had no memory between the ages of 6 approximately and 30. My body's 43 right now. Mm-hmm. And, when the memory returned to me, it was very like the most natural thing in the world. It occurred after I took up a long-term meditation practice, and I was able to, I was no longer so deeply associated with the form. I really deeply investigated that aliveness, that consciousness that is here now. And I didn't expect anything. It's just that once we go in that direction far enough, deeper aspects of ourself rise up all on their own. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This might be a roundabout way of getting to the question. So you mentioned that you didn't remember from about 5 or 6 to age of 30.
Yeah.
The other day, and we're all veiled, correct? Like we're all veiled when we come here. So
yes,
we can be in this experience.
So we can be human. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other day, my son and I, we talk about, the truths of the universe, and we talk about God a lot and what our purpose is here. And he asked me, why do we forget? And I was doing my best to tell him what I think I know. And he said to me, he's 8. He said, wait, so you know how we don't remember much before we're 3 or 4? Is that because we actually do remember? and then we learn all the things that humans learn.
That's not a bad
Inquisitive.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the neurological system has to develop, and it's so, we start blank. Like when I remember the day I was born, and I had no understanding of what was going on at all.
Yeah.
So we start with like a blank slate as the human character, but the deeper us we are absolutely not a blank slate in how we arrive. The soul has a ton of experience it brings with it and arrives with. And yeah, and then the veiling allows you then to get lost in, so to speak, the human character, so that you can have the experience of just being that person and just having that experience and having the perspective of being that person and not the perspective of being all that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember, I don't know if it was an interview that I watched from you sharing your story, or if it was in your book, but I remember you sharing an experience about being 3 or 4, and you just had this assumption that everyone could feel each other's feelings, and you were so excited. And it brought back a memory of when I was young, and my parents they were having like friends over for dinner. And I just remember being so excited to jump into the conversation, and they all laughed at me, and I cried, and I ran to my room.
Oh yeah, because you couldn't articulate yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And because I must have, I am an empath. I'm very sensitive, so I can feel a lot what is around me. But I remember I was so excited to share it, like
Telepathically.
I was, there with them.
Yeah, because that's how in higher systems, it's just like that. You show up, you're excited, and you want to connect, and that automatically happens because intention. We're telepathically connected all the time. Well, we still are telepathically connected, actually. It's
Right.
just that most of us are quite unaware of it on a routine basis. So I totally relate to what you're saying. Yeah. And then as a kid, you don't have the language yet to, like, you don't have it takes a lot of practice to be able to then take all the thoughts and ideas and turn them into words and throw them at somebody else in a way that makes sense. Yeah. That's a strange, very clunky way to interact.
Right. That brings me to another curiosity. You said we are all still telepathic. So one of the things that, as I started learning about my empathy, and my kids, I start talking and they're like, Mom, how are you in my brain? How did you know I was thinking that? And my answer is, we're all one mind, but they think I'm psychic or a witch. And I'm like, well, we all have that capability.
Absolutely.
We all have that?
Oh yes, absolutely. No, it's the norm. When I say the norm, I mean on Earth, it may not be all the norm all the time. But as spiritual beings, in most higher systems, we tangibly feel and know our connection with each other and with the environment all the time. And so telepathic exchange, that is the exchange of not only ideas, but feelings, is just the natural, it's the natural, efficient way of interaction. Like if you want to, like, there's no room for misinterpretation when you're sharing exactly what you're thinking and feeling and intending, and they can see it and you can feel them. And, that's kind of what we're used to. And that includes information and data. So now that we're on Earth, it's like, put it this way, we're still connected to the database. The database that's running the simulation is a part of us. It's a part of spirit. So it's actually not far. It's not hard to reach. It's just that when we're veiled, we often are quite obscured from it because we're so focused on the clunky thoughts and the clunky sense data and the clunky everything, the denseness. Usually that intuitive connection is very fast, very instantaneous, kind of comes in complete chunks, and it can be inexplicable. Like you might know something that you have no conscious on the human level way to know that, because you are connected to the information and to the source of it all. And it's quite normal. And then if we develop close relationships with others, especially if the relationships are genuinely loving, real genuine love, that's like an open bridge So then telepathic exchanges can happen much more normally, like really close friends, or like last night, my wife and I were sitting in bed and I was reading something. And then I just had this like telepathic, like, would you scratch my back? I didn't even ask it verbally. And she reached out and scratched my back, and she was reading something and she just did it. And it was like, and then I kind of laughed out loud and she said, why did you laugh? And I was like, well, because I just asked you to scratch my back, but I didn't bother to speak and you still heard it, so it's anyway, so that kind of stuff does happen.
Yeah, those are fun experiences. I know that there's a lot more threads now that I want to go down, but you mentioned database and clunkiness. And so like for listeners that might be not sure of who you are, or new to, some of this kind of content, can you explain what that means, the clunkiness, like
the clunkiness? Yeah. So when we're physical, all we know is the physical. So it's hard for us to understand how this could be clunky.
Right.
But in comparison to our higher states of being that are less constrained, everything here is very, very dense and slow and clunky. I don't know what other word to use. By comparison to the speed and rapidity and fullness of action that takes place in higher states. So maybe, I don't know if this metaphor is going to be helpful, but like if you imagine going to an IMAX movie theater and then going and watching a TV show on a 20-inch black and white TV screen. The black and white TV screen is much smaller. It's black and white. It can't convey nearly the same bandwidth of content. We get used to the black and white movie screen. Being on Earth is like living in a black and white movie by comparison to the vividness and the realness of higher states. And but this change is not just in sensory data, it's in vibration. So what I mean is, this is hard to describe. Our higher state is very open and connected, and our local state is very dense and firm. You could say firm. And so for instance, on Earth, if we intend something, it does not automatically immediately happen. Like if I intend right now to go to California, it's just the odds of that happening are almost impossible. I'm not going to expect that. That's not how it works. But in thought responsive systems, higher systems that are much more fluid, if you intend something, if you think something, it immediately happens. It immediately affects the environment and it's real. Like you can see it. I mean, it's very tangible. Mm-hmm. So here on Earth, it's still actually our intention and our thought still has an effect. It's just a lot slower. And there's a lot of us in the game. There's a few billion of us playing, at least just in the human roles, not to mention the other roles. And so those intentions and those thoughts are building up thought momentum, and the thought momentum can translate into physical outcome. Actually, it just takes time, usually.
Mm-hmm. I liked how you described that. I noticed that as I was listening to you, I had this vision of like everything I see in front of me, my laptop, the microphone, there's edges, right? Like you said before, and what, like almost like it just turned into like nothing, like but colors, or you said vibration, and it was almost like a fuzzy TV screen or something where it wasn't like so, hard or firm, like you said.
It's the firmness is not just definition of objects. That's a part of it. But and the reason I say that is because in higher systems you can experience objects that are even more real, more tangible, more colorful, more whatever. It's just that here there is a density of vibration that has come to the I don't know how else to describe it other than to say there are layers of preceding energetic action that have taken place that have to culminate in a lot to reach this level of density and to actualize. So we're like engaged at a very, very, it's like we're locked into a position while we're incarnated. And this locked in position is very low vibration by comparison, but also very powerful because we're locked into such a dense position. And in that very, very dense position, when we make hard choices, when we deal with the feelings, the emotions, the strong human emotions and the thoughts that might arise, the very loud thoughts that can arise, or to circumstances that are so persistent here, like someone dies and they're gone the whole rest of your life,
Right.
super persistent. That's a very dense, kind of a constraint. Then now that you're locked into having to face and deal with those constraints, how do you respond then? How do you respond if you have an illness that lasts not just a month, but a year, or not just a year, but 10 years? After 10 years, how are you responding? That level of persistence and consistency and density is one of the great values of Earth, because now you really have to decide how you're going to respond.
Right. Yeah, I just really felt that locked in when you said that. I can't describe the feeling, but I felt it in my core, like we're locked in.
We're as locked in, we're as locked in as we can get. I mean, that's like that's the technology of the veil, is that it allows us to lock into this very, very dense, high opportunity position. And it's one heck of a ride,
For sure. Yeah. So I want to go back to when you were describing the black and white movie and the IMAX movie. So I'm very deep into the work of A Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery, and they often they're channeled by Jesus, and it often depicts the comparison that this is a movie. So there's a couple pieces I want to ask you about here. One is that our choice is to tune in to which movie we're going to be watching, the one that's led by ego or the one that's led by God. Do we actually, can you talk about free will, and, do we actually create our own reality?
We do create our own reality, both individually and collectively. And the collectively part is a big one on Earth. So while we're human, we focus an awful lot on how the physical has actualized. We focus a lot on how the objects are placed today. Who's got what, who's doing what, what's the new image that's on TikTok, whatever, who's leading this company today, or who, we're really focused on those kind of events. Okay. But the important thing is the quality of being with which we are meeting the objects that have arisen, and what kind of decisions we are making in response. So we can say that's called choice making. What choices do we make? But there's actually something that's taking place deeper than the choice itself, and that is intention. It's the best word we have. I just mean at the deepest level as a spiritual being, what is the what and why you are making the choices you're making today? What is the quality with which you are making your choices? Honestly, because you can't fool the universe. Like your actual motivations are your actual motivations. You can fool yourself, well, you can at the ego level quite a bit. The deeper part of you, of course, it's still seen. So what I mean is, what is that quality of intention? That's what the whole name of this game is what is the quality of your intention with which you meet any given moment, any given choice? Are you responding out of fear and rejection and ego that is like trying to grab onto some power that seems to have been lost because now you feel separate from everybody else and you don't have power, and now I got to get some money, or now I got to control this person next to me, or now I got to belong to the right group or believe the right thing, whatever. Or are we choosing to have patience with ourselves and others, compassion? Are we choosing ownership, perseverance? Are we choosing to relate to the present moment in a way that is more in alignment with the love and the peace and the joy and the freedom of our true nature? Because that our true nature is love and peace and joy and freedom. That is our true nature, always, always, always. No matter how deeply we get wrapped into the horror stories that we've created for ourselves on Earth, and no matter how much fear we have in response to the horror story we've erected, our true nature is always that love and that peace and that joy. Yes. So can we make choices that are in alignment with that? And when we do that, we feel joy. We feel the freedom and peace. People say, well, how do you know if you're wielding an intention that's in alignment with love? You will feel it. You'll feel one step closer to freedom, one step closer to joy, one step closer to fullness of fulfillment. You'll feel fulfilled. Like there's a deep satisfaction when you actually help the person next to you, when you actually love the person next to you, when you own your own crap. After decades of like, tormenting yourself or causing pain for others, when you finally look at your own fear and say, wow, I have a lot of fear. When you really face that and own that, those are powerful moments. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. I love that you brought that in, because one of the most powerful essays in your book was, you can't trick intention. You can't trick your intention. And as soon as I read the title, I was like, I felt like I got it already. But then after I read it, I really just resonated with what you said. We can't, and I know if I look back through my life when I was lying to myself or trying to trick myself, because it wasn't ever ill intention. It was just, I didn't know better.
No, it's asleep. It's unconscious. And egoic action is very largely unconscious.
Yeah. And then what I loved about your previous interviews, and what I really wanted to talk to you about, was the intention of love. And I think that, several times you've mentioned in your book and in other interviews that that is our purpose. And that is actually what got me to start paying attention. I was coming out of treatment for an eating disorder, and my treatment team said, go be around 12-step, go be around recovery, go find a church or a spiritual center. And I opened up the calendar to one of these spiritual centers, and it said, there wasn't, I didn't look at the sermons. I wasn't going to go to those, but I saw Real Love was a group, and I had no idea what that was, but I was like, that sounds like something I need. And that's what started everything. Well, I'm sure it started in treatment, but the book was Real Love by Greg Bear. And that's, for 14 years, 15 years now, it's been my intention to learn how to love unconditionally. And so, can you talk about love a little bit on the other side here?
So when we talk about, love is one of those things that's almost impossible to actually talk about. But when we talk about love, we tend to talk about like the feeling, the emotion. And then like we think about what type of love, like, the Greeks had 7 or 8 or however many different words for love. Sorry, I don't remember, but there was like, familial love and romantic love and friendship love. And so when I use the word love, it's just the best word that we have. It means that which resonates with and aligns with our true nature, because our true nature, we are all one. We're all connected and a part of each other. We're all drops in the one ocean. Love is that which then is in alignment with the truth of that connectedness. It honors it. It celebrates it. Love is like a boundless celebration. It's the nature of life. It's lifting up the other and the beauty of creation and celebrating it, celebrating the beauty of existence itself, or not even needing a form, but yet serving the other, not just as the self, but as wonderful. I don't know how to describe it. Whereas fear is it's not duality itself is transcendent. So I don't mean to make it sound like there's a true opposite called fear. Fear is a non-native response. It's a response to a non-native set of limitations, wherein we buy into a perception that's not in alignment with the truth. So if we feel powerless, we feel fear, because our true nature is very powerful. Or if we feel that we're not worthy of love, we feel fear. And then we do whatever we can to try to fill that hole. Right. Or if we feel that, shameful, or we don't have control, or, they all kind of boil down to some of the root ones, perceiving you don't have power, or perceiving you're not worthy of love, and a few others. Anytime we buy into those perceptions that are not in alignment with who we really are, that can prompt fear, precisely because we are losing ourselves in the perception of being something we're not. You see, now it's like, I'm not loved and amazing, and oh my gosh, I'm disgusting, I'm gross, and then we respond in fear. But I like to say that fear is just yet unevolvedness. It's just a synonym for that, because it just means that there's a part of our experience here that we haven't yet fully integrated. When we fully integrate the experience, when we fully accept ourselves and everything we feel, when we fully feel it all, when we do that, there is a profound expansion out to that point, and we discover the love and the peace and the joy that we really are never left. We never, ever lost it. We never lost it. But but now we've gone out to this limitation, this circumstance, this relationship, this drug addiction, whatever it is. And when we really integrate that and find who we really are in it and heal it, now we've expanded out to that point, the native love and the native joy and the native freedom that you already are and never lost. Like we never, ever, ever lose that. So back to your original point, love is what we are. It's just the description of what we really are. And, a lot of near-death experiencers return and they can't even there's no words on the absolutely profound depths of blissful love that exist for you. There's just no way that we can possibly articulate. It is absolutely unconditional. I know some people really get up in arms on that because they want to defend conditionality because of beliefs, but it's completely unconditional.
Yeah.
Love is an unconditional acceptance and lifting up and empowering of the other, the apparent other.
Yeah. Yes. I love that you just brought that into the conversation, because one of the practices I've been doing, I'm doing the Course in Miracles. I'm doing all the lessons all over again. So there's 365 days of lessons, and a lot of the first part of those lessons is, I guess ingraining in our minds, imprinting that everything's neutral, and that we put meaning into everything that we see. And I know you've talked about that.
I was just going to say that I feel like that is one of A Course in Miracles' great strengths, is that it is attempting to, so I personally feel like sometimes the language is difficult to understand, and sometimes perhaps even less helpful. Sometimes it's not helpful because of the very specific meaning of some of the language. But anyway, overall, I find it to be a valuable exercise in re-relating yourself to form meaning sensory data, thoughts, objects, ideas. Because like you said, it is all neutral. Like when you're a baby and babies are just, they don't have any meaning tied to it. They're just experiencing sensory data and they don't even know what it means yet.
Right.
You can, this is just kind of fun, but you can locate how deeply you are associated with form. If you whisper your name to yourself, you'll notice this very strong pull to identification with your name. You're not your name.
Right.
You're not even a human. You're not male or female. You're having the experience of being this name and being this human who is male or female. And so, A Course in Miracles can be really helpful, because it is very helpful to spend time, actual time. We have to take linear time to practice, to do these practices, to practice meditation, and to locate your own relationship with form. And then when you do that, what happens is, not because you're trying, but as your relationship with form changes and as you open, larger parts of yourself and of the truth just can rise up all on their own. Like all of a sudden you might feel this amazing peace. And it's like, and as soon as you do, the ego's like, oh my God, that was amazing. How did that was amazing. I got to get that. I got to grab that again. And it tries to grab onto it. I know.
Yes. Clings.
It's got to cling. I understand. But that's okay. That's okay. So if we notice the neutrality of the form, then there is this space that we create for that bliss and that joy to arise. All form actually is neutral, even pain. I know that's really hard, but like I remember the last time I had the stomach flu, so I'm very sensitive. I'm a very sensitive person. There's a lot of the human limitation set that it's been difficult for me to fully accept. And one of those things is being nauseated or vomiting. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think anybody is, but I really don't like it. So the last time I had the stomach flu, I was laying on the floor in my bathroom, and I just tried to really identify the sensation itself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to reject this. I don't need to resist this.
Yeah.
And then I noticed this is not a disassociation, actually. It's actually a move away from it's a full awareness, full alertness. I noticed that in full alertness, even the sensation of vomiting it was happening. It was neutral. It didn't need to be a source of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually oh, I don't know how to describe this without making this sound improper, but like there's actually a joy beneath all experience.
Yes.
even
Oh,
even painful experience. It's the
yeah.
resistance that hurts. I'll just say it's the resistance that hurts. It's the meaning that we put on it. That it's a rejection of ourselves or of somebody else that hurts. I'm not good enough unless I look a certain way, unless I do a certain thing, or unless I respond a certain way. No, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's not true. You are a beautiful, powerful being.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have a choice then in how you respond to all the neutrality, all the neutral form, dense but neutral form that has arisen in the physical experience.
Yeah, I love how you describe that. So one of the things that I do is I facilitate authentic relating modalities. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but one of them is called circling. And what we do is just explore what it's like to be us in the body, in the room, in the present, without labeling it. And a couple of months
That's
ago,
awesome.
I was playing basketball with my son and my daughter, and I'm really competitive, so I was really into it, and I sprained my ankle like really, really bad. And I was resisting until I was sitting there and I noticed that where my ankle was, it just felt like this big ball of like the pain. I went into the pain and it was a big ball and it felt like kind of mushy, and it was such a like crazy experience because it hurt. My body said it
Yeah.
hurt really bad. And I had to crawl around. It was a really bad sprain.
And what was that
But
ball made of?
it was like energy. It felt, I don't feel it now, so it's hard to go
Yeah, I
back.
understand. I
And
just
but I noticed it was like a puffiness that, kind of almost like it was protecting my ankle in a weird way. And so, yeah, I just loved how you described that, because that's one of the things that I know gave me a lot of relief when I started like learning the truth of who I am, was that, oh, if I put meaning into this, and my
yeah,
thoughts are creating my feelings, and my feelings feel like they're suffering,
yeah,
well, that's a point to a little bit of freedom, a little bit of relief.
exactly. Oh yeah. No, and then that rabbit hole goes very deep.
Yeah.
Because we really are incredibly free,
Hmm.
but we have put a ton of meaning on the physical. And then what happens is then the ego even tries to justify its lack of control. Like no, I don't have power, because that means that I actually have to, like, there's some reason that I have my egoic excuses.
Hmm.
Well, that's why quality of intention is so important, because we have to have the willingness. We don't have to. We may choose or may not choose, if we wish,
Yeah.
the willingness to acknowledge the quality with which we're even making that choice. Like,
Hmm.
as an example, some people are afraid of success. I know it sounds, it sounds
Yes.
crazy, but some people don't want to, like, for whatever reason. It might be
Mm.
fear of failing, so they don't want to succeed, because then they can't lose the thing they fear to lose.
Hmm.
Whatever it is, at the bottom of all of our little games we play within ourselves, where is the fear?
Mm.
And that's why it's so powerful to directly find and face our fears, and find that when we go into them, ultimately, it may feel like really terrifying. I'm not making light of the depths of fear. I'm here to face,
Yeah.
I came to this life to face fear. I do not make light of it. But when we really go into that closet, I use this metaphor in my book, and I've shared it before, but I'll just share it super quickly. When my father was a little child, a kid, he would lay in his bed and he would look at this closet in his bedroom every night, and he was terrified of the monsters in the closet.
Yeah.
And every night he had problems falling asleep, and he was just, he lost his peace over these monsters in the closet. One night he said, you know what? Screw this. Enough's enough. I'm going into that closet. I'm going to find those monsters because I'm sick of being afraid. And he
Right.
charged into the closet, and he felt through the clothes, and he sat on the floor, and he expected that he would be eaten. But nothing happened. There were no monsters in the closet.
Right.
So today, as an adult, my father is not afraid of closets. Now, I know that sounds silly, but our fears are like that. We torture ourselves for years
Yeah.
resisting something.
Yes.
And then when we eventually go into the closet and really go in there and really feel everything, we find there was nothing ever ultimately to be afraid of. This is the place where we can test that to the extremes, man.
Yeah.
The extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. One of my first sponsors told me this. And so I've been sober from drugs and alcohol it'll be 10 years in December 7th.
Congratulations.
And thank you. Yeah. Talk about miracles. They are real. She said to me, you're just going to the edge of fear to see it isn't real. Oh. And like, I'm so grateful that I had her as my first sponsor, because the learning that I got, I've taken that with me everywhere. And I live in Phoenix, in Arizona, in a desert. So just about a month ago, there was a scorpion in the house. And my daughter was like, whatever, we're going after it. If I get stung, I've already been stung, but looking at, like, I don't care about being stung. That doesn't scare me. I can handle the pain, but looking at it. And so we both used it as an opportunity to go to the edge of fear, to see it isn't real. And, we felt everything in our body. I mean, that was like the most contrast I have felt in a long time.
That's wonderful. Yeah. It's amazing how even a relatively small stimulus we really can use. Now, we're not saying go get yourself stung by a scorpion. That's not what we're saying.
No.
But yeah, even that, it could be something silly. Like, this is another very silly example, and this is just, personal, but it's the kind of thing that so a few years into my awakening, as I was really waking up to my relationship with form, one night I was standing at my toilet urinating, and I realized I was afraid of the feeling. And there was no reason to be afraid. So I went into this, but it's okay. There is a reason, because I feel afraid. There's something. And this sounds simple, but I didn't really have control over the sensation. I mean, obviously I could stop urinating if I wished, but that's not what I meant. I meant the feeling itself.
Yeah.
I didn't have control over this is such a simple, basic human experience, but yet it's dense. Like everything that we do here has a density to it. So I'm just saying that any simple interaction with form we can use in that way. That's really cool. Yeah. And then it's interesting, because then the scorpion tends to respond differently.
Yeah.
Whatever the scorpion is, whatever it is.
So the thing is, I didn't see it. I saw a piece of fuzz. Then my daughter stepped on it, and she was like, what's that? And it ran under my bed, and we were going to bed. So I had way too much fear. There was no way I was going to sleep with that with it under there. So we, so I was like, I was trying to call a friend, but it was 10 o'clock at night. I had no one to come over. And so she was like, all right, I'm going to help you if I get stung. And what I love about this is the quality of, and this wasn't always the case for me, but, playing with the opportunities, the challenges, the things that do arise in our life, as ways to experience, right? That's what we're here to do, is experience.
Exactly. And it is like a big playground. It's like a big playground with apparently sharp objects in it.
Right.
Yes. But it's a big playground. We our true nature is so playful.
Yeah.
We are just such playful, fun-loving beings at heart.
Yeah.
Children are like that before they get conditioned out of it, right? We're all like that. We're deeply playful. And this is this whole thing is
Mhm.
kind of like, let's see how far we can take this creativity thing to the next level and really be dense and really get old and really have disease and really like see how what we can do with it. And it may
Mhm.
not seem fun to the human ego at times. I'm not making light of the difficulties. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that the spirit that has given rise to form is playful, and we can
Mhm.
use all the form as like a big playground. It's amazing when you lose your fear. Well, maybe not
Yeah.
lose your fear. It's amazing when you've processed fear and really come to meet reality in a state of alertness,
Yeah.
how much everything becomes a beautiful playground. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Like things that otherwise would not seem magical, all of a sudden there's magic everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing.
Yeah. That's been something recently that, my kids are actually joining me in it. So I'm super
That's awesome.
amazed and happy that they play along when they're with me. They go to a different household. So I don't know what happens there, but
Yeah.
it's more like not to expect that I'm never going to be afraid, but that when I notice I feel afraid, that's an opportunity
Yeah.
to like get present to, oh, what's happening?
What's the yeah,
What am I?
exactly. What's the message? What's the
Yeah.
messenger? Like fear is like a messenger. It's like, hey, you have a perception that's not in alignment with the truth. And you're like,
Yeah.
ah, man, I really do. What is
Yeah.
it? You know, and you can go
Yeah.
find it.
I notice it can be sneaky though. My kids, so I'm more relaxed now than I used to be, but I can be very OCD. And so my son loves playing soccer, basketball. So he'll kick the ball around and sometimes it'll hit things and I'll say, Liam, keep it on the ground. And he'll say, Mom, isn't that your ego being afraid that something's gonna get broken? Yeah. And I'm not
There's,
willing to go that
yeah,
route.
I can understand that. I mean, I feel like, sometimes I respond in that way too, of course. And I
Yeah.
feel like, I mean, part of it is prudence. Like you're trying to be prudent and,
Right.
right. So finding that line, and I don't, but that's good. I mean, that's wonderful that he does. I mean, I feel like none of us
Yeah.
should ever be afraid to have a question, is that an egoic response? And it's okay.
I
Like
know.
notice
Yeah.
that the ego will immediately be like, oh no, it's not an ego. It's okay. If you're having
Yeah.
an ego response, it's totally fine. If you look at yourself, say, oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. So even that, like, one of the things that has been in my awareness lately and in the world is not to like try to deny ego or push it away, but rather, to take that playfulness into, when you're recognizing it's the ego or things to that
Yeah.
effect.
That's beautiful. Ego is, yeah, because ego is not something separate. It's not like some separate structure that you're trying to get rid of and beat down with a stick. That's not how it works.
Mhm.
It's just the part of it's you
Yeah.
when responding in fear. That's all.
Yeah, I'm curious because I've heard and read some similar but also kind of opposing things, and maybe that's just my own understanding or lack of understanding. So is the ego an illusion, or is it something we created?
Yeah.
Say
So the way that I use ego is the portion of the self that is responding in fear. I don't mean ego as in the existence of a separate human personality, which is how some people use the term.
Mhm.
So all form is not fundamental, including thoughts, emotions, patterns of the mind,
Mhm.
including ego structures. Those are all not fundamental. They're all made of the stuff that is fundamental, though, which is consciousness, spirit.
Yeah.
Spirit is real. It's the most real thing. And
Mhm.
then it loses itself in experiences of form for a while.
Mhm.
But the realness of spirit endures and then has an experience of form. So now I feel that it's important to not say that the experience itself isn't real. I know that some teachers say, oh, none of this is real. Well, it's like when you go to sleep at night and you have a dream.
Mhm.
When you wake up in the morning, it's pretty obvious now in your awake state that that was just a dream. It wasn't really real.
Mhm.
But something did happen. The thing that happened is you had an experience.
Mhm.
And that is what's happening on earth.
Yeah.
It's like we're asleep in the dream of form and we're having an experience. And
Mhm.
then when we wake up, we realize, oh, I wasn't the human character.
Yeah.
And if the human character has an ego pattern, okay, you weren't really that either. But did you have an experience of being a human and wielding an egoic intent? Yeah, you had an
Mhm.
experience. I think that's the best way I would.
Yeah. I love that. And you mentioned dream. So I'm 43 years old too. I'll be 44 next week,
Ah,
week and a half.
happy birthday.
This life, even though it's a dream, like we go to bed at night and the dreams feel like a few seconds, right? We wake up. So our experience in this firmness, in this denseness, is that what makes it feel so long? And really, like what I've heard is like it's just like a blink.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, you could say that the linear time itself is a part of the denseness and linear. So because of that, our experience of linear time can seem very long. I personally feel like this life has gone on for just ridiculously long time. Like, I know it sounds silly, but I feel like instead of 43 years, it feels like 43,000 years. That's how long it feels to me that I've been in this journey.
Yeah.
From the other perspective, that where we move closer to transcendent, because we transcend linear time, our true nature transcends linear time. Then from that perspective, yes, it can seem like the blink of an eye. But once again, though, that timeless self has the experience of knowing length of time and knowing sequence. You could say linear time is like a way of knowing sequence or experiencing sequence.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic to get into, is time. When you mention sequence, it's like in this life, it's like we take one step and then another step. So it appears like it's sequential. But, when we access, like when we get present and we access that nowness, how is that to like the truth, what time actually is?
Yeah, that's a step towards the truth. So time can feel different. Very different. Sometimes meditation can feel like, if you're really meditating, it can feel like a very long time, very short time, both. But yet you were highly alert the whole time. It's not like when you fall asleep and you're not alert. A state of meditation is one of alertness. It's a beautiful alertness, and yet time moves differently because you are no longer focused into the radio channel of linear time.
Yeah.
Not that you're trying to do that. You don't sit down and say like, okay, I'm going to leave linear time now.
Right.
That's not how it works. It's just that as you focus away from this channel, by focusing on your awareness itself, which already transcends the channel, you may automatically step beyond, at least somewhat, the linear time experience. Because like I said, linear time is an experience. It's not really a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like how you say that. It's an experience. Yes.
Yeah. Everything here is an experience more than it is actual objects.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do notice that we've been talking for a while, and I do have some questions.
Sure, of course.
So the first question that I wanted to ask you specifically is, how would you define spirituality?
Yeah. Okay. So spirituality is about one's relationship to the present moment. And it's a very alert seeking of what is actually real. I think there's two main ideas about what spirituality means. So what I mean is, I'll start with the second one. What is actually real means go investigate objectively what is your awareness itself beneath thoughts. You just go look. Don't make anything up. No stories. You don't have to make anything up. Be a scientist about it. Go explore and investigate. What am I? Underneath don't settle for thoughts. More thoughts will immediately come up. Your mind will say like, oh, well, it must be a form, must be this, it must be some idea. Go deeper, go investigate. And so spirituality is actually a move away from the illusion and the dream of form, which can never fully articulate. The answers are there. The truth of being is always what you are. So it's always available to you.
Yeah. I love that question because, there's so many ideas or made up constructs about what spirituality is. And so I love hearing the truth about what spirituality actually
Yeah.
is.
And then in the first one, it's about your relationship to the present moment. So that is, how are you using this? Well, what are you doing? Who are you right now? Like, I love, there's a Bashar quote that I love: circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters. That's so powerful. It's not just this abstract thing. It really is incredibly powerful. And so spirituality is about refining that quality of being towards love and past fear. That's really what all the, so then, people, of course, people then say, oh, but I really benefit from a system, a belief system, an action. That's fine. That's good. We're physical. We're beings of form right now. So where we are in form, we often benefit from form. Like we can pursue a tradition. It's important to have time set aside for a spiritual practice. That's all important. It's just that spirit is much bigger than, transcends the form itself. It operates through form, but it isn't the form. The form isn't the name of the game. It's not what you believe specifically that's going to be the active ingredient. That was like one of the main things Tom Campbell said back in the day, 13 years ago, that kicked me down my awakening path. Like, it's not your belief itself is not the thing that is going to be the active ingredient. How do you use belief? How do you use belief? What do you believe and why? Or, because many people use belief because it's terrifying not knowing. That's okay. When you're ready, it's okay to walk off that cliff and say, I don't know. I don't know. It's amazing how many answers are there when we're ready to do that.
Yeah. So I told you, I don't know if I did it while we were recording, but I have been using your book as an oracle. And today, the message that I opened up to was thinking as distinguished from being. And I highlighted the only things that separate you from the native transcendence are the thoughts, judgments, and beliefs that you have decided to cling to and formalize over a lifetime.
Yeah.
So I love that. It circled right back to how I started my day.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's not simple because we really get deeply associated with the form. We take it really personally.
Yeah.
I understand. It's just that there isn't ever anything actually separating you from the fullness of who you are. And there is incredible joy in that. Oh, one other thing that I just felt strongly nudged to mention. Okay. Sometimes when we think about the action of moving away, it's not even an action, but I'll use the word action. Sometimes when we think about the action of moving away from form towards the transcendent, or from form towards awareness itself, we feel like we're going towards nothing. Like there's nothing there. Like when you first start meditating and you sit down and you're like, oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts. I have to pay the bills. I got to feed the dog. I got to do the things. And then as you focus on something neutral, or as you focus on the breath and you take time and you go and you spend time and you go deeper into that, at first it can feel like you're going towards nothing, like away from something which is real and towards nothing which is not real. But this is very important. Oh my goodness, that awareness itself, which transcends all form, is full, not empty.
Yeah.
It's full of life, and it's full of tons of other form. So some people who meditate a lot actively and they're ready, they may experience out-of-body experiences. I know I've had out-of-body experiences, very eye-opening experiences. And when you have these experiences, they are not subtle. It's not like a little wish-washy dream. It's like an IMAX movie in comparison to a black and white television. And that was always there. And it's actually incredibly fun.
Yeah.
But I'm just mentioning that because it seems at first like you're moving towards nothing when you're so deeply associated with dense and clunky form. But when you put down the dense and clunky form, things may rise up that are not nothing. They could, I could say there are other realities of form within our being, and they can be engaged as well, even as our beingness itself transcends all realities of form.
Yeah. Wow. I loved how you said, like, it's not really the word, because I know that words don't really explain a lot of this stuff, or they can't actually describe it, because everything is beyond words. But when you
Yeah.
said it feels like we're moving towards nothing, it reminded me of some interviews that I've watched you in and things that I've experienced and read, that there's nowhere actually to go, right? There's
Yeah.
no distance, that we're already here. Can you speak to that a little
Yeah.
bit?
So distances, when I say there's no distance, what I mean is the experience of distance is happening, but physical distance itself is an illusion. It's just not real.
Mhm.
It's like logging into a video game. If you sit down and log into the World of Warcraft and you're walking around, Ironforge, the name of a city in that game,
Uh-huh.
it's not really there, it's
Yeah.
occurring on the screen and it's in a computer. You can't go find Ironforge in the computer. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So the physical world is like that.
Uh-huh.
It's an experience of sensory information that's arriving on and in your consciousness itself. And so when you really and so even believing in the distance helps the distance be real. Like if you assume I'm trapped in my body, I have to get out. If I want to have an out of body experience, I have to get out of this physical thing. I can see it. I can touch it. I need to escape this physical thing. Even that assumption is not super helpful, because you are lending credence to the realness by believing it. In fact, the thing that's real is consciousness itself. And that consciousness itself is a part of the one great consciousness, the one mind, the source. It's all one consciousness. It's all connected. And we are always connected to it all the time. So then when we go look at a sunset, so thinking all the time is like looking at a sunset and thinking while you're doing it. And you're not experiencing peace because, or even appreciating the beauty, because you're thinking about this person who was mean to you at the office today. But when you fully let go and really with alertness be present with the sunset, you may feel the aliveness and the connectedness that is in the sunset, but it's your being. See, like the sunset is in you. It's like a part of you, and you are marveling at the beauty of what is, and what is occurring within you. It's a beautiful thing, yeah.
I love the way you describe things. Actually leads right into my next question. I remember reading or listening, probably both, to when you felt like the sun, and when you were coming into this life as Christian and you were afraid and you felt what you would call God. How would you, I know words aren't going to do it justice, but how would you define God?
Oh, that's the hardest question. So there are no words at all. We only can use metaphors. God is the sentient, loving, conscious foundation of all things, both personal and impersonal. God is the ocean of all that is, of which you are a drop, your soul being one inseparable drop of. God is the most close friend and lover and parent. And beyond all those things, the substance and the great I am of all things. The great I am of all things, or the source, I think would be the simplest ways to try to describe that what we call God. But I could just say it's the thing that's most familiar to all of us. Basically we're all running around trying to find God every day. We might not call it that, like we're trying to fill this hole. We feel separate from each other. We feel powerless. We feel unworthy of love, and we got to earn the love. We got to fix the problem. We're all seeking that the bliss of oneness that we already have with God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what other words to use.
Yeah. I love how you said that, though. It's what we're searching for all the time. So when I got sober,
Yeah.
it was step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And in that step, I had to redefine God from the way I was brought up to believe. And since then, my coaches, my sponsors, my mentors, whoever I'm working with, they got me to see that anytime I want to reach for anything external, all I'm really wanting is God.
Yeah. So one thing I'll say, that's beautiful. One thing I'll say is that one synonym we can use for God is unconditional love and an absolutely unfathomable wisdom. So I'm putting it that way because this thing that we're seeking is very much alive and real to each of us. The most familiar thing to each of us, the most holy thing to each of us. That one of the hardest parts about sharing my experience is it's so personal. You know, it's like pulling down my pants. That's how I feel. But but I'm not going to be afraid of that. You know, it's what we all are. It's just that relationship is so holy. And so real that I feel like it's blasphemy to even try to speak to it. Right. But we all know that, you know, we all have that connection deep down. We all have that, you know, in the Christian terms, we all have that relationship. I don't tend to use the word relationship because that implies it's totally something else and you're over here and it's over there and you got to relate with it. It's kind of like that. It is that, but it's also not that because it's your deepest nature.
Yeah. My next question, I think we might have already talked about this, but probably in a different way. So what would you say, having your experiences and your knowledge and your wisdom and just who you are, what would you say is the purpose of life?
Yeah, the purpose of physical life is the expansion of love and joy through the experience integration that occurs through integrating experience and through choice making, through learning and growing, not intellectual learning of the being to choose love rather than fear. So it's an expansion of love and joy through the growth and actualization and growth of love, and the integration of all the perspectives and situations and roles that beautifully occur on earth. Like to be you as a human and as a woman or a man and as an American or a Chinese person or as whatever, as a child or as an older person, whatever you are, whoever you are, all these forms, to experience being that, exactly that today. And how do you respond to that? And then that experience, it becomes and is very precious to the soul. You know, the soul treasures like more than gold, you know, the precious experiences it's been able to have, the perspectives that you've had, the relationships you've been able to build, the love that you've been able to create and foster and share. Oh, it's more precious than gold. Love is, you could just say very simply, love is the reason.
When you said love is the gold, it just hits my heart.
I know. So, it's sacred. It's sacred to all of us.
Well, and it just, you know, when I hear you speak and others and it's just, you know, we're not here to become a CEO. We're not here to, you know, whatever these life things are that equal success. Like that's not it. And so
we can if we want, but yeah, that's not it.
Yeah. As part of the playground, but I just love it when I hear and feel the truth. So thank you.
Yeah,
so
it reminds me of a near-death experience. I've quoted this so many times and I forget whose it was, and I'm sorry for that. But there was a near-death experience I read where this individual had their life review, and they remembered they saw and experienced going down to this river as a child when their parents stopped at a rest stop and they had a bucket of water and their parents had asked them to bring water to the car. And when they filled the bucket of water, they noticed a dry tree out of the way and they went over and watered the tree and then brought the rest of the bucket to their family, and they never thought anything of it. But it was such a celebrated moment of their life because it was just a loving act. There was no benefit to the person. It was just in fact, they had to go out of their way a little bit to water this tree. And that is so important. You know, the small stuff is the big stuff, the small loving things, the moments when we face our fear and own our crap, the moments when we really are acting in kindness or simple joy. Just like, let's say you've had a long, difficult day and, you know, and there's someone playing outside. Do you go play with them? You know, that's the beauty. It's not about how many objects we've moved around or how much money we have. Like that's none of that's gonna. It's like accumulating gold in the World of Warcraft. It's not gonna mean anything when you're outside of the game. But what is of great value is who you are, because who you are lasts and endures and actually shines far brighter past the end of the physical. Who are you today? That's the real question. That's the real opportunity.
Yeah. This final question, if you could take one piece of wisdom that you have now to your younger self, the one after between 6 and 30, when you were
Okay.
so veiled, what would that be?
Well, so that's tricky, because if I revealed to my younger self what I'm now aware of, I would not have had the opportunity to do what I came to do. So I'm not certain how to answer that. But in general, one piece of wisdom that I think is important to share is there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Like we actually are powerful multidimensional beings having a human experience. Like we are. It's not just a religious thing, a mythological thing, I know it may seem at times like a nice far off dream or something. We really are multidimensional beings having a physical experience. And in our true nature, there is absolutely nothing to fear. I think that's just so important to remind each other of every day here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that strongly too. When I hear you say that, I just, whether we believe or we don't, like, it's not about that, it's who we are. So
it's who we are.
Yeah. There. So thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me today. If someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they go about finding you?
Yeah, sure. So I have a website, awalkinthephysical.com. My book is available for free to be read online at the third link down on the books page of the site. If there's interest there, and I'm happy to respond to email if I can. Sometimes I get a lot of emails, so I apologize if I can't respond or if I'm delayed. But my email is awalkinthephysical@gmail.com.
All right. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your great strength and your light and shining this in this way. It's powerful stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.